Hello there. Welcome to episode 60 of Bow and Blade, a podcast brought to you by medievalists.net, your home for all things medieval on the internet. Bow and Blade gives you a seat at the bar as scholars of medieval warfare go beyond the Wikipedia articles to talk about the debates and the questions that we're working on today. I'm Michael Livingston, Distinguished Professor at the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina.
And I'm Kelly DeVries, professor of history at Loyola University, Maryland. And last semester, I'm retiring. I'll be emeritus maybe the next time we do a Q&A, Mike.
Yeah, hopefully. Uh,
Definitely.
how's things? They good?
They're good. Yeah. I mean, it's sad. Sad to come off a spring break, going back to teaching tomorrow. But you starting spring break. So,
Yeah. Suck it. Uh,
uh,
yeah, I'm awfully sad that you're done.
yeah, probably not as sad as I am. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
we, we relish our spring breaks in academia.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we relish them quite as much as our students do, but
Probably not. No.
yeah, I'm always like, please be careful, kids. I know you're in a hurry to get home,
Yeah.
but drive safely. Please
Yeah.
don't do anything bad.
And yeah, then try to stay away from the stupid stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it tends to be that academics we stay home and mark papers. You're or do some writing. We don't often head to the beaches of Florida or the Caribbean. That may be our fault, though. Maybe we should see the spring break as our students do.
Yeah, I'm knee deep in copy edits. That's what I'm doing. I'm partying like like an animal doing copy edits, man. Woo,
Yeah.
woo.
When I started teaching 100 years ago, it used to be called Reading Week up in Canada. Reading Week. I don't think we have the pretense of Reading Week down here. I think our students, if anything, are reading beach novels.
Yeah, they're reading signage on where to go get a drink.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's possible.
so yeah, so episode 60, as y'all know, we have a thing here every 5 episodes. We do a Q&A. So this is Q&A number 12.
Wow,
If you can believe that. And we got some great questions.
we got some great questions. The first
Um,
one though is what you drinking?
what are we drinking? Q&A is a free-for-all.
It is, yeah.
One gets to do whatever one wants. Um, and myself, and this is somewhat connected to one of our first questions. I'm going non alcoholic for the day. I'm having myself a
Oh,
Fentimans ginger beer.
not a fentanyl beer.
Not a no, Fentimans ginger beer.
Fentiman's beer. Oh, well, that may mean I have to go double the alcohol just to make out for your fasting, or are you observing Lent, giving up alcohol just for the day? I had a very good Bordeaux red last night, so I'm tempted to go back there. But I think I'll have to. I think I'll have to go to the old fashioned. In view of a couple of questions in here, I'm going to need a little bit more of a punch in this session. So we'll go
Yeah,
with a rye old fashioned, double the
rye.
cherries.
I love old fashions as everyone knows. I don't usually use rye. I don't like rye in my old fashioned. I'm a bourbon sort of fellow. Uh, yeah. Let's start. Well, I've been anxious to do this one.
Okay, all
Um,
right.
yeah. We have a self-described our biggest fan. Um, and look, I don't doubt it. I honestly don't doubt it. I
No.
do believe he's number one. Henry Ohm, 13 years old, listens to us and had sent a amazing set of questions. Henry, love you, buddy. Great
Absolutely.
stuff. Great stuff. We we've had so many other things going. We haven't had a chance to get to his letter yet, and for that I do apologize, Henry. And one of the things he did ask was, could we please do the Battle of Patay, which we did, Henry. We did it for you, buddy. Episode 57. You were the reason that we did that. So cheers to you. Henry also asked, well, he said his family's going to go on a vacation. Awesome, dude. Vacations rock. And your parents, I'm sure,
Yeah.
are awesome people. So it'll be totally cool. And he wanted to know, in our opinion, what should he not miss, medieval wise, I assume, in
Yeah.
southern England and Wales?
Well, number one, I think is easy. You've got to see Hastings. The Just to be there, to have that big school on the ridge, and that was a monastery or a monastic church at one point. The ruins of which are still there gives kind of a certainty to me that that's the hill that was fought on. Now, I have noticed just recently a couple of books come out since yours and mine, and they've again both got the horses going up the what we would consider too wet a field to have charged up, and they're avoiding the Roman road, which we think is the right way. But Henry, if you go to Hastings, first of all, seeing the place, seeing the ruins of the monastery, looking at the school that are on the ridge where the Anglo-Saxon forces, Harold's forces, had been lined on to start the battle. Noting the Roman road that comes up from the south and comes up out of Hastings and out of Pevensey, where William had put his troops. So I think that those sites are really important. And if you're there, you could take a small trip down to Pevensey and see where he lands, and also to Hastings and see the amazing castle that William was responsible for building.
Hmm.
Uh, those would be my number one place. Don't miss Hastings.
Dover.
Dover would be another.
You got
Yeah,
you got to go to Dover. My God,
gotta go to
Dover.
Dover.
Look, Dover is it's it seems like something that you should say is overrated, right? Because I mean, like, it just should be, but it's not.
It's not. No.
It's not. Dover is incredible. The layering of history in that place, from Rome all the way to World War II, is incredible. And they have done a bang up job of uh, of presenting it, right? Of like,
Yeah.
things are well preserved, things are well marked, it's easy to get around. They have done just a tremendous job of making Dover an amazing place to visit and learn about history. Dover Castle, Henry, buddy, it's awesome. It
Yeah. It's
really
awesome.
is incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Dover Castle, and you're right about the lane of history. I mean, it starts with that Roman. You still got a Roman windmill there, and
Lighthouse.
lighthouse, and yes, I'm sorry, lighthouse, and then you go right through the Middle Ages, all the way to. Dover's still being used in World War II
Yep.
as a spotting station and other things, radar station and other things. It's got such history. Plus, you look down on the beach and see where Prince Louis attacks in 1217. So you've got that there. So I totally agree with you. And Rochester nearby,
Yeah.
which is besieged by John, and
Canterbury. I mean, there's, golly,
Canterbury. Yeah,
so many amazing things. But yeah, you can't miss Dover, I don't think. I'm
and
leaving aside London. There's so many things in London,
no,
but like,
London's, yeah, but
um,
there's not a lot of. I mean, to see the castles and fortifications, other than the peasantry revolt, I mean, London really doesn't get into the fighting much in the Middle Ages. Peasantry revolt does end there,
yeah,
rather rather wrongly for the peasants who are revolting, but that's important. I'd say the other place down south, Tewkesbury, Tewkesbury Abbey, the church. They've got a very nice little battle walk. It looks like, from what I can tell, this is where the Battle of Tewksbury was fought. And there you've got one of the big important battles, the Wars of the Roses. Richard III fights in it. Henry VI fights in it. Uh, well, no, I don't know whether Henry VI does. He's nearby, but Richard III does. And it just is a very determining battle for Richard to be king of afterwards. I mean, the other two battles in the north, Wakefield, I would say is important, and also especially Towton, but those are in the north. So the if you want to get a feel of the Wars of the Roses, I Tewkesbury plus there's a lot of great monuments in Tewkesbury Abbey Church.
Hmm.
So
Wales. Where would you suggest Henry go in Wales? It kind of depends on where you're headed in Wales,
yeah,
Henry. Because Wales, anywhere on the circuit, go to a castle.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they're all whichever way you go, amazing, amazing castles. What's your favorite Welsh castle, Kelly?
Oh well, Harlech is my favorite.
Okay.
So you've really got divining. If you're going to go anywhere north, Henry, see all those Edward the First castles. I mean, Beaumaris, Harlech, Conway, Carnarvon, Flint, Rutland. Uh, all of those are amazing castles. If you're staying in the south, Caerphilly, you've got to go to Caerphilly. That's an amazing castle with the tower that cracked and started to fall, but leaning ever since it was built. And Caerphilly also has some nice things there. Various trebuchets and so forth. You can see they'll operate them for the tourists and so forth. It's a nice castle to see. Cardiff Castle is nice to see. There are a few in the southern portion of Wales. Hereford is a nice castle. But as far as battles concerned, that's a real interesting question.
Well, he didn't necessarily ask about battles. I mean, you're making it
Mm.
about battles, but he didn't ask
Okay,
that.
yeah, Megan. Yeah,
He said, are
fair
there
enough.
sites I should see, places I should see?
Yeah, that was
Um,
just my mind speaking openly because I was thinking battles a little bit.
there's there's uh, there's not much to see in terms of landscape. There are some amazing battles down there with Owen Glendour.
Yeah,
Um, another a castle that's a little bit out of the way, but very evocative is Carrick-Kennen.
Cannon. Yeah,
It's just up on this rocky like hilltop, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Pretty amazing. But I would definitely agree with Kelly. Um, the big boys down there in the south, those castles are incredible. Harlech, gosh, Harlech's incredible.
Harlech is. Yeah,
Harlech is
Harlech is
amazing.
the Harlech to me is the stereotypical. It's the big black rock fortification out on a ledge. It just huge towers, very very thick walls. I mean, it is almost as stereotypical as any medieval castle can be.
And it's
Uh,
really neat, I think, the way the landscape has changed there too, which is kind of cool. It's a good place to see that. I'll also say this isn't necessarily medieval. Um, Aberystwyth is a really neat town. I mean, it's a really neat town. That there is a great ruins of a castle there. It's nowhere like Harlech and those kind of things. But it is a neat place. Henry V, besieged that as well as Harlech. Um, and Aber is just really evocative. And if you do go, make sure you walk up the boardwalk, Henry, along the shore. You got to walk all the way to the north end and kick the bar. There's a metal railing, and one has to kick the bar when you're in Aber. So yeah, you take the walk up. The big the cliff railway will be on your right. You walk all the way up there, you kick the bar. So yeah, man, Henry, I'm jealous of you. You're gonna have a great trip.
yeah. One
It's
other I would include Kenilworth. castle. Um,
Yeah, Kenilworth. Yeah, a little bit off the beaten path for a lot of folks, but man,
Very
really,
important. Henry
really
V,
important.
all the way to Elizabeth. Very important in that latter Middle Ages. But also the place where Henry gets taken from Shrewsbury to have his head worked on to get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
arrowhead out.
which actually Henry in his letter talks about how amazing it is that we have the Bradmore account of that. So yeah, great, great, Kelly. That's Henry. If you want to go see where that was, we don't know which room it was, and it's kind of in ruins enough that you wouldn't really be able to go there. But the castle itself, the site, that's it, Kenilworth. And Kenilworth is neat because the come almost like in a panoramic, you can see the castle changing over the generations and how different they are. So yeah, really, really good idea. Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, one of the few castles also has its own tournament ground
Yeah,
on
out
the
front.
path leading to it.
Very, very interesting place. And the Plaisance in back, kind of out by the what used to be the Mere.
Yeah.
Neat, neat stuff. You're gonna have a great time, Henry. Henry also asked, he asked two follow-up questions. We'll try and hit them pretty quickly. He asked us what did we go see the first time we went to Europe? I think individually here. What do you remember the first thing you saw when you went to Europe?
Well, now I was going to Europe for a different reason. In 19, I was heading over to Belgium for for Mormon missionary to be a Mormon missionary, and so what I remember is the various older places we went to because it's there that I decided I would be a medieval historian, and so I remember going to Ghent, I remember going to Bruges, and those medieval cities still with so many landmarks, the second and fifth largest cities north in the west of the Alps, really, and north of the Alps. I think Mechlin Cathedral was the first thing I really saw that was. I mean, there's a cathedral that not a lot of people see. It's Malines in French, Mechlin, and it was built towards the end of the Middle Ages in Gothic style. And the cathedral is huge, but they had intended a tower to be twice the size of the one at Strasbourg, which is still the largest now, because they got halfway up, but they knew it was not going to be finished. So it has a tower that's halfway up, still marvelously shot in the air, and that was finished in the 15th century, but it doesn't have any of its facing stone on it. So they were worried even to put facing stone on it, and they had a huge large bell they put in, which is only rung twice at the end of World War One and World War Two, and each time it's rung, the tower has shifted 10 centimeters on each side. So they're pretty wise not to build it any higher. But that's where I mean I've never the acoustics in there. Uh, this is a town that von Beethoven, because it's Vienna, von Beethoven's grandfather had a school of music there, and it's probably because this cathedral has the greatest acoustics imaginable. A
That's
lot of other
cool.
things in there. Mary of York's palace, where the second wife of Charles the Bold, and the one who brings Mary of Burgundy up, and Margaret of York, I'm sorry, and Margaret of Austria. Charles V, her palace is right across the street, and that's Charles V's sister and governess of the Low Countries at the time of the Spanish extending their Reformation into that area.
It's a
So that was
pretty good
probably the
intro to the
first
Middle
one.
Ages.
Yeah, it
Like,
was. It was a tremendous intro to the Middle Ages, just seeing a Gothic cathedral like that, and the failings. Some of the architectures they
yeah.
tried to go too big in a couple of places. So, it's always fun to see it. Always fun to see Beauvais Cathedral. They didn't finish it because it was too big. It wouldn't have worked. It fell, and they realized it wouldn't have worked. All that stuff.
That's cool. That's cool. Um, My first time going over was I was going over for a study abroad sophomore year in college. Um, and I still don't know how they did this, but the study abroad was in Maastricht in the Netherlands.
A beautiful
Um,
city.
Beautiful city. In this amazing Kasteel Vashartel, which is an incredible place. And I went back and visited this summer. It's still an amazing, amazing spot. Um, but on the way, we flew first to London and stayed 3 days, I think it was, um, in London, and we stayed at the Westminster Abbey School.
Oh, well.
And yeah, it was like, are you kidding? Like, we're staying in the Westminster Abbey School, which is, I mean, right in the middle of everything. And then one of the evenings, I think it was the second evening, um, we got to have a tour of Westminster Abbey. Like it was closed. Like it
Yeah.
was like
So you
just
had the whole
us.
place up. Wow.
Oh my
You and the
gosh.
ghosts.
Yeah. Holy smoke. That was incredible. So yeah, man, that's my first thing I saw in Europe was Westminster Abbey School. And the Abbey right there. I just golly. Um,
Here,
I
here we are, two medieval military historians, but the first thing we see is a church.
That's a church of all things. Yeah.
And
I had crossed the Mississippi. We both grew up out west, Kelly and I. I had crossed the Mississippi, I think, twice before that.
mm,
And then
yeah,
I find
that was a
myself,
while. Yep, that's all I had done too. Twice I'd crossed Mississippi.
wow,
Um,
what an
but
intro.
it
What an
was.
intro.
I still remember the first time I went to Belgium, and I was up in Antwerp, and we rode past these buildings like the Antwerp Cathedral, and the stain had stained the castle on the harbor, and I thought, we're not in Utah anymore.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is really quite old. We're not in Utah anymore.
Quite old.
Yeah, yeah, but
Um, yeah, Henry, thank you for your questions, man.
that
Great,
was, yeah,
great
yeah, that
questions.
was gross. Great question, and great memory. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Henry also asked if either of us is going to be doing any talks in Europe in September, October of this year. I don't believe either of us have anything scheduled.
no,
There is I have been invited to give a talk, but have not agreed to do so yet, in that window, to coincide with my book release around that point. So, we'll see.
yeah.
Hopefully if that happens, hopefully I'll see you there. Uh, Another question from another loyal listener. Declan Graham asks, we mentioned, I can't remember which episode it was. We mentioned in passing Gilles de Rais. And I think we said something like probably the most prolific serial killer in history.
Yes,
And
yes,
so he's asked, could the charges levied against Gilles be trumped up, similar to the situation with the Knights Templar? Which is a great question. So
it
let's
is.
actually
Yeah.
start with kind of the second half of that, like the situation with the Knights Templar and the charges. What do you make of them, Kelly?
Well, I've always thought the Knights Templar were, I mean, those were charges were trumped up, and I don't think I've ever gone away from that. I did hear Jonathan Riley Smith before he passed on. He gave 3 or 4 lectures on the that he felt and he published one article in the what was it, the Royal Commission of History, and on the trial of Templars, which he thought that they were guilty of charged. And there's no doubt that some of them were guilty of heresy or guilty of putting the Templars and some weird rituals ahead of things that would be called heresy. Still, there were enough. I think that the idea of the Templars, the idea when Philip the Fair essentially goes against them, waiting until the Grand Master is in Paris so that he can capture him, and just some of the other things that were going on. Plus the fact that the whole organization was different in different places. I really think that those charges were trumped up. I think that Philip um, wanted to break them. Well, we know he did because he sends a letter earlier to his cousin, who's the Pope, um, which says basically, we should arrest the Templars. But I've never been convinced that they were guilty. And Jonathan Riley Smith, as great a historian as he was on the Crusades, he never convinced me
Yeah.
either.
So, okay. So, and I essentially agree with that. I mean, I think, yeah, there were some rights and things that they were doing that you could say were sort of awful, but in the end, it's really a political axe you're grinding, and you're trying to find excuses to grind that axe. So yeah, the Knights Templar were kind of railroaded.
Yeah. Um,
So was Gilles de Rais railroaded? What do you think?
no. Now this one I think no. And I mean I was stunned. The first time I looked into Gilles de Rais, I actually had some doubts, like Declan does here. And I thought, oh geez, I mean, it's a situation where we're just looking for somebody to bring down. I mean, the charges, of course, to Joan of Arc, who he is generally paired with, even at the point where there was a fairly interesting book called the Saint, the Devil and the Saint. But Gilles de Rais, unfortunately, I think there's fairly certain evidence that he was the most prolific pedophilic murderer in history. And that not only comes out of the comments, but we still have the trial transcripts. And the fact that two of the young men who he had preyed upon then became his assistants and acquiring things, and they both burned at the stake. Gilles de Rais was as well, but he, being part of the royal family, he was strangled beforehand, so he wouldn't feel the fire. But what convinced me finally was reading the trial transcripts, and like Joan of Arc, they still exist. Joan of
Yeah.
Arc's trial, they still exist. What is really frightening to me, and I know Mike hasn't read them, and I'm not sure I would recommend anybody read, mostly because once it becomes certain that he is not getting away, that these two young men have testified against him, and then another so-called magician who helped him toward the end testifies and gets let go because of his testimony. Once Gilles finds that, then he starts testifying and won't stop for 3 days. And like any serial killer, he intricately remembers every single death. And it took him
Yeah.
3 days. And
Yeah.
so I think, yes. And I think the number is around 146 children that he killed. Um,
Uh, yeah. We obviously don't want to get into details of this. I've only read bits of it. Um, it
yeah,
was
it's
enough.
horrifying.
It was enough. Um, yeah, you the things he's talking about doing and such, and as Kelly said, remembering it all, um, is pretty damning.
Yeah,
And that he is um fairly consistent in what he's talking about.
very
Um,
consistent.
and is also like you couldn't make this up without this being kind of something you were kind of wanting or whatever. So yeah, there have been attempts to try and say that Gilles de Rais was framed, and there was a somebody tried to do like a new trial, and I think there was a hung jury. Um,
Holy cow! I don't.
yeah,
They must not have had the transcripts because yeah, there was no hung jury back then. And I mean, Charles VII is king at the time this happens. Charles is his cousin. So Gilles de Rais is a member of the royal family, as I said. I think
Yeah.
Charles would have loved to have had the charges be suspicious or be dropped, and they weren't. Gilles de Rais was put to death.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, yeah, I think there's something kind of it's kind of interesting about us, not necessarily Kelly and I, but I mean like human beings
yeah,
that we like to we like to find conspiracy. And we like to have this notion of, oh no, there was really this other explanation. I think it gives us a kind of sense of power, I suppose, to think that kind of we have the secret or we
yeah.
have the key to unlocking, and everybody thinks it's X, but really it's Y. And I think there's something to that with the desire to get Gilles de Rais off the hook, um, which is like I get it, but also like that's kind of deeply unhealthy. Facts are
Yeah,
facts,
yeah.
and to kind of try and operate against that is not cool. It's really not good. Um, the other the other thing that might be happening with trying to let Gilles de Rais off the hook is actually a question that I've been asked by students. I'm sure you've been asked this question, Kelly, way more than I have. Um, what was Gilles' connection to Joan really? Because I think a lot of the trying to get Gilles off the hook is also tied to this idea that he was so close to Joan. Um,
So this is how what I started to do when I was doing my research in Gilles de Rais, and before it led me down this very horrifying path, was to see, if there was a Satan devil type of situation. Uh, Defining Joan's companions is important, very important, because they were the men, and they were all men who were leaders of the French forces when she comes on. And there are some very important people there. The Bastard of Orleans, who will become Lord Dunois, the Comte d'Alençon, the Count of Alençon, La Hire, Ponton des Entrées. There are some amazing men who fight with her and who would then go on to be the generals that will win the Hundred Years' War. I mean, the Lord Dunois, the Bastard of Orleans, will be the man who takes Normandy, 1450, 51, or 1449, 1450. He retakes Normandy, and had he not died, he would have probably been the man who went down to Castillon and then took Gascony. He was the head of the army for many, many years, 30 years at least. So there was a lot of credibility that was given to those men who fought around Joan of Arc, and they were remembered as such. So I was kind of curious because there had been so much linking with Gilles de Rais there. I do know that she saw Gilles at Chinon, that he was among the group who welcomes her and gives her that kind of trial of redressing the Dauphin and sending him back into the group. He's there. He also is at on the Coronation Army, which is the army that goes forward after the Battle of Patay to put Charles on the throne, and it's going up to Orleans. And no doubt, because she's leading that, she's in contact with him there. But I cannot find him at the Siege of Orleans. I know the movies always put him there. Uh, I can't find him at the Siege of Orleans, and he seems to be still with the king down in Chinon. The king does not ever come to Orleans. The Dauphin does not come to Orleans, and I don't see him in those battles. But after Orleans falls or Orleans is relieved, in that a week of battles that's a month later that goes along the war and gets Beaugency uh, and Montmeung. I don't see him there either. So he joins when the king does. He joins the Coronation Army, which follows the last engagement of that week, which is at Patay. So I don't know now. when I was trying to do a little research into it, I found that he had fought in two battles as all before Joan's rise. Neither of them could be considered important battles. They were more skirmishes than anything, and he doesn't take a major role in them. He's simply listed among the nobles who are there. So I I don't think he has much connection to her. Not like some want to do so to make this angel and saint or the Satan and the devil type of dichotomy.
Well, it's not just to make that dichotomy, though. I mean, you go into the Cathedral of Orleans, and there's Gilles' banner hanging up like right there with the rest of the boys, and Joan.
Weren't we
Um,
shocked by that when we saw it two
yeah, I
years
mean,
ago?
you're like,
It
wow.
wasn't in there when I started my Joan of Arc book and visited there the first time.
But part of that is Gilles himself did some work to make sure that he was connected to her.
Yes, yes,
So yeah, what Kelly's quite right. There's to historically find much connection. There's not a lot. I mean, they're in the same circles, basically, right? They're in the same circles. But this idea of like he was like right there with her the whole time. Yeah, there's not even much smoke, much less a fire for that. Um, but Gilles was at some pains to connect himself to
yeah.
her.
So what we I don't never think we've mentioned to the audience out there is that there was a huge play done. In fact, it was called a mystery play at the time, Le Mystère of Joan of Arc, that was put on every year at Orleans in celebration of the raising of the siege of Orleans. Now, I don't think it starts until about 1332, so it's a year after death because I think
1432.
1432 is the year after her death, and I think that's when it gets started. The fact is that Gilles de Rais pays for that play after it started. He pays for that play to be rewritten to place him in a bigger role, and he even plays himself for a few years in the 1430s.
Yeah.
Consequently, it's also when he starts his murders.
Yeah. So that's the interesting bit, right? This
Yeah,
his historical connection is pretty tenuous. But as Kelly said, after her death, I mean, before her death, she was already kind of a cultic figure in some regards. And certainly
absolutely.
after her death, that increases in much of France. And yeah, Gilles becomes the patron of the Mystère and I'm giving you money to put this on. Hey, how about you give me a role? Hey,
Me.
how about me? How about we make me a bigger deal? Since I'm paying for this. And that the Mystère has almost more to do with creating Joan of Arc than almost anything. I mean, this is an incredible play that kind of encapsulizes a myth, a story. I don't mean myth like untrueness. Well, I mean bits of it are untrue, like Gilles.
It's fabulous. I mean, it's embellished, shall we
It's
say?
embellished, but it's a wonderful myth in terms of story, right? And it institutionalizes that story into now this is what it is, and we see it every year. And as a population, we kind of like that's what it is, and this is the center of Joan fever in Orleans. And that then becomes the story that gets told and retold. And yeah, this psychopath, has a absolutely central role in making that happen. So yeah, the saint and devil kind of thing doesn't so much apply to Joan's life as it does to Gilles' life
Yeah, yeah,
and what he's trying to do and whatever I mean I think that's a get a psychologist on the phone like what's
yeah.
he doing here is this covering up? Is this a way of not necessarily covering up, but actually reveling in his two lives? That gets kind of squirrely. But yeah, the connection is in reality is not very big.
No, and it gets really taken in odd directions, and it all starts with Gilles de Rais putting himself in the play, I think, and associating himself more, which also means, Mike, that he doesn't go to war with the rest of the companions.
Yeah.
They're all away from Orleans. Orleans is not in the war front anymore after it's raised by Joan. It just isn't. So yeah, for Gilles to stay around there, and of course do his murders, staying near his castles down there, it means that he was not participating in war after she's executed. So it takes him out of that kind of military way. But the legend has gone in such directions that it wasn't a decade ago. I found a graphic novel in Europe uh, that had Gilles de Rais as Joan's lover. Now, if you think for a moment that Joan is made a saint because she's a virgin, and that is her one, she's the maid. She calls herself the maid, and that means I don't clean your house. That means I'm a virgin. You can understand how that graphic novel had to take this in a really weird way to try to preserve her virginity, but it's still called Gilles de Rais her lover and her mentor. And it's not the first time I've heard of being described as her mentor. But she was definitely not paying any attention. She never mentions his name. He never is listed in the councils she attends along the Loire. So I can't see the connection. It is curious, though, just on one sidelight, that within 2 centuries, he's become Bluebeard,
Yeah.
and the children have become women, his wives that he's killing, as if that somehow makes it
Better.
more romantic or something. I have no idea. Gilles de
Gosh.
Rais is a very confusing character, and he's terrific. So I've never actually published my article that I wrote on him
Yeah.
because it takes something out of you when you read the trials transcripts. He was just a horrific individual,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting contrast because we have in the French army as well this amazing woman, Joan. And even though their paths don't cross much, having two of them around the same period is an interesting comparison always.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an awesome thing. Just, how do memories get made? How are people memorialized? Who plays a role in that? And of course, too often we don't know. We don't know who played a central role in creating, the myth of a lot that we believe. And here we're lucky to know one of the individuals that had such a role. And wow, what a a hornet's nest it is to know that. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, fascinating stuff. But yeah, if you were looking for Gilles de Rais truthers, Declan,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're not
Yeah.
into that.
Or maybe we are, and this is the only truth there is
Well,
because
yeah, we're not.
he
Uh,
does. We would have to, with the Templars, I mean, none of them, well, some of them under torture would admit to being heretics or admit to being to all sorts of weird things. Because Gilles de Rais was a member of the royal family, he was never tortured. So he did this all on his own, this long testimony on his own. There was nothing that was coerced out of him.
he's
And it's
bragging.
really hard to say then, yeah, sorry, I do think Gilles de Rais deserved everything he got. The one question that I have that is I've never seen answered sufficiently is could it be that because France was at war and also elsewhere than the Loire River, because France is at war after 1431, after Joan's execution, and because he was a noble in a royal family, did that allow his crimes to go to be to him not to be blamed for the crimes that he eventually was found guilty of? And that is an interesting question because there's nobody who comes close to his numbers of killing.
Yeah, and I think there's no question about that. I mean, it's nobody's that I know of has really kind of published thoroughly enough on that. But yeah, I think there's no question. Why is he able to get away with this? Well, that's a political question.
Yeah,
And not just the fact that he's royal, but as Kelly said, there's a war on. Um, and that makes it easier for certain crimes to happen then and now.
yeah.
So yeah, so Gilles de Rais, there you go.
Now I think we should wait till the next Q&A and then talk about whether Richard III was. The new book has come out in the last couple of months, exonerating Richard III again, um, by the woman who found his body. So we'll take that up later.
Yeah. Oh boy. Um, yeah, he killed the princes. All right, so because he's not an idiot, that's why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is a question. It's probably our last question. But it's a question that we've been asked. I can't remember who asked it, so apologies. How strong were gunpowder weapons in the Middle Ages?
That's a really good question. I've always been asked that. How strong were they? How efficient were they? All military technology at one point or another gets asked. How really good was a halberd? How really good was longbow? We've talked about these things before. Gunpowder weapons. That's an interesting one because it does take a little bit of time before gunpowder. Both and you could say this in China as well as in the West, but we'll stay to the West in this. It takes a little bit of time after gunpowder, the gunpowder recipes first get written down by Roger Bacon, by Albert the Great, by Mark the Greek, that's a pseudonym, all of that before 1300, before guns get made and then guns get put into use. So there's no question that they're in use by 1340. Edward III has them, has some. He has them at Crecy. He has them um, possibly earlier. We have records from the Tower of London that says that he's got guns on his expedition 3040. We have guns making their appearance in Walter Villenet manuscript and in the pseudo Aristotle manuscripts in London about 1326 to 1327, and guns in Florence in 1327. So, but where we then start to see them having an effect is not until the end of the 14th century. And we start hearing about there being effects. The small, apparently an earth and wood fortification outside of Calais, Puka, gets bombarded um, by bolts shot from fired from a gun, and there it's the first one to kind of fall. That's around 1380, around 1383. We have, or 1382, we have the use of guns against the citizens of Ghent by or Bruges by the Ghentnars in the Battle of Bevershout, Todd's Plain. And there they seem to cause some real fright. We don't, though, get numbers of who they may have killed or if they were even used in that way or whether they were used as noisemakers and so forth. So that's where we kind of begin. By the end of the Middle Ages, they've gotten very good. By the end of the Middle Ages, by a century from there, we have the Swiss and Burgundians fighting with handheld gunpowder units in their wars of 1475, 1477. We've got them on ships in the Mediterranean. We've got them on ships going to England. Um, so they've gotten better there. And then we hear about how effective they are against the walls of Constantinople and some of the other places.
Yeah. So what Kelly's giving you a chapter, of the history of gunpowder. I think what he's trying to say here is that when you say, how powerful is gunpowder in the Middle Ages, when, is a very important question.
Yes, yes,
When? Because when it first shows up, not terribly powerful. By the end, quite powerful.
quite powerful.
So yeah, when are we looking at? And what are we looking at to some degree? Like even gunpowder recipes aren't all the same. We have changing recipes over time. Their ability to refine the material makes a difference. The actual weapon itself, the design of the weapon itself, makes a big difference. Um,
If I
yeah,
had to put a date on when gunpowder changes from just a potential weapon to be used to an actual weapon that's going to change the way war is going to be fought, I would have to put those between 1380 and 1420. So in 1380, 1420, we start seeing fortifications fall to gunpowder weaponry. We start to see more and more guns being produced. We see more and more gunpowder being produced, changes to carriages, changes to other things. And all of those will lead to more powerful weapons.
yeah,
Then the next one would be towards the end of the 15th century, 1480, 1475 on, when we get the changes in powder that will make corn powder
yeah.
and the changes, and that will force a change in the construction of guns because it's too powerful for the old wrought iron pieces. And so that's the second wave. And after that, guns will never be off the battlefield or siege fields again, or off ships.
Yeah.
So that first period, 1380 to 1420, and then the second period around 1475 to 1529.
Yeah, I'd move that earlier period up a little bit myself. I mean, look, Henry V, um, obliterates a town in 1415 with gunpowder weaponry.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's making quite a difference already at that point. Yeah, but yes, this question, how powerful is it? Depends on when, depends on where, depends on what. And also, it's difficult to test. We have a colleague who's working very hard trying to test gunpowder recipes, which is awesome. Love the idea. Love like let's see if we can put some scientific numbers to this stuff. Um, but it gets tough for us to get terribly certain about that kind of stuff when you can't make things quite the same way. And gunpowder is something that it's chemical reaction. And if any bit of the chemical reaction is off by some percentage, the reaction itself, testing that's going to be off in quite a percentage. So I think one of the ways that Kelly and I sort of firmly agree on what it means for gunpowder to be powerful is what is the actual effect, right? If gunpowder isn't strong enough to do much to a wall, um, then meh. Like like
Yeah, yeah,
what does the number matter? Like because two numbers really involved. One is the gunpowder's strength, right? The strength of the weapon, but the other is the strength of the defense. And it's only when the strength of the weapon starts overcoming that defense that it kind of matters in a sense. Then you're like, oh, now it is something that's on the field, right? And yeah, that seems to happen. Again, I think it's slightly earlier there, but around 1400, that is now overtaking to where those weapons can actually do major damage to structure, and that is transformational. And then again, 100 years later, a little bit less than 100 years later, that happens again. That next wave where now, corn gunpowder and stuff makes a huge difference.
And bronze guns that are poured
Yeah.
with the cholesterol down. K. Smith has done a lot of the science, a lot of the technology on this, and those are definitely the points that I agree with you. Now, also we talked about when and where. Really, it's who too.
Mm.
Henry V. We've talked about Henry V. in very glowing terms as military historians. It's hard not to, but he realized that Harfleur, the guns were not going to bring everything down. He wasn't going to win. So he doubled that with mining underneath the walls, and that worked. We talked about Suleiman doing the same thing in 1522 at Rhodes, and doubling it with explosive mines. Of course, the expense then means you have to have Suleiman with a very, very wealthy empire to be able to afford the gunpowder, or Henry V to be very determined to afford the guns, and to bring them at least over the channel, if he doesn't take them to Agincourt. So it's there's a lot of factors there, and of course it's a huge argument still. Uh, if you wanted to fill in the gaps, because we talked about coming down to 1420, really after 1420, 1430, and all the way to 1460, there's changes in fortifications being made that now will, as Mike has used that idea where guns get so strong that they can get through. Well, fortifications will now get better, and so guns, if they stagnate, they now can't get into the fortifications that have gone stronger until some of these changes are made in the chemistry of gunpowder and in the use of lead and steel, or lead and iron balls, and the use of very strong cannons towards the
Yeah.
end of the century.
It's an arms race, right? I mean, and arms races are about active offense and defense. We see the same thing in armor. Like
Yeah,
chain
yeah,
armor is fantastic
it's
until,
fantastic for a millennium.
yeah, for plenty of time, and then when it starts becoming overcome, well, now that armor's got to change to prevent most of the injuries that are happening. So. Yeah, it's a question we get asked a lot. How powerful were they? Um, and yeah, it's actually a really complex question.
Yeah,
And again, one that I think is best situated in terms of, like, when and where is it knocking stuff down? When and where is it penetrating defensive armors? When and where? That's kind of the more pertinent question, as opposed to, well, what is the actual um, kind of the strength of the explosive, um, that's only of utility really once it,
yeah.
it starts having an effect to overcome a defense.
And
Um,
it's got to be also said very briefly that once the guns become good enough to take down walls of castles, then they have to be moderated, because you can't use those same guns on the battlefield. So by the time we get to Montleray in 1465, I think, and the three battles, Merton, Grandson, and Nancy, the Burgundians, then the Swiss will fight Nancy, the Burgundians, and the fighting the French. The By that time they've gotten better guns for land, for using, and they're different. And the same thing will happen on a on shipboard. One though, quick funny story I always point to about how sometimes the technology got good, but they'd fail in another thing, another, and that's the story from Philippe de Commines about the siege of Beauvais in 1480, that's undertaken by or 1470, that's undertaken by Charles the Bald. And he says, the first that they had a big, huge bombard, one of the big cannons they brought up to Beauvais, and the first cannonball had shot through the gate, and the second cannonball had hit the dirt in front of the tower and had caused it to start to break. And he says, if we'd brought more than two cannonballs, we surely would have taken the city. You say, you just moved something 55,000 pounds to Beauvais, and you didn't take enough. And these were stone cannonballs, so they didn't take enough, or they didn't have a mason with them to carve stone. And so you say, at that point, you should have known the simple things also need to be done in order to keep these big technological monoliths there and working. That's
Comines is a fun text to read. He's got so many little things that are
He
just,
loves the stories, and his
yeah.
but that one, yes. Had we brought more cannonballs, we surely would have taken the city.
They are starting to lock the place up on us. Hope everybody enjoyed this. We always
Yeah,
enjoy Q&A because it's just kind of a wide variety of stuff. Look, if you got a question, something we said, you got a question about it, whatever, send it along. Send it along. We will look
yeah,
forward to getting it. Um, and again, please do join us next time. We're going to be doing the Sacs of Rome in the 5th century.
yeah.
So we're going to reach
Go
back.
Goths, go Vandals, go
Yeah,
Leo the First.
yeah, should be great fun. Um, as ever, a reminder. This podcast is sponsored by medievalists.net. So the best way to support us, other than buying our individual books, of course, is to join their Patreon at patreon.com/medievalists. That's also the absolute best place to drop us a line if you have questions for our next Q&As. Cheers, everybody.
Ciao.